So up to this point, we've talked about the different cultural dimensions that exist. But let's talk about some cultural demographics that can exist within one culture that can be considered co-cultures at times. Let's start off with race and ethnicity. When you think about race, think about the physical characteristics of a group. That usually includes skin color, at times body type, facial structure, hair color, and even hair texture. Then there's ethnicity. This is the common experiences of geography, ancestry, traditions, religion, language, food, and even dress. Keep in mind that race and ethnicity do have some overlap, and that can make these really confusing concepts to differentiate. In the past, I had a group of students, and I asked, tell me a race in our country. And they were able to name a few. And then I said, well, tell me an ethnicity in our country. 2 minutes of silence happened after that. And one student, in a very hesitant way, said, Italian Americans? And I said, yes, that's an ethnicity. And I guess my enthusiasm must have boiled over, because then I got a flood of answers from the other students in the room. But there are confusion of, well, how do I define ethnicity? What is included in an ethnic group? Isn't that abnormal when you think about it? Both race and ethnicity are social constructs. This means that someone wanted to make a category. That category, since it was human-made, isn't always the most accurate way to describe someone. For example, if you think about a Hispanic community, whenever you check on the census, there are black Hispanics, there are white Hispanics, and there are Hispanics who fall somewhere in the middle. Again, the skin color, which we would think is race, and the ethnic group, which is going to be based on geography, ancestry, traditions, all of those things show that difference. Sometimes people can identify as multiracial. And then they have to identify, well, how do I classify my race, especially at times when there may not be more than one box to check. And then there's some people who don't even know their ethnic heritage, either because their families just didn't talk about it that much, or sometimes because their ethnic heritage and background was stolen from them. As you can see, this is a very interesting concept, and I wish we could dive deeper, but we also got to talk about sex, gender, and sexual orientation. So when it comes to sex, think about sex as the biological classification as male, female, or even intersex. Now, if someone's intersex, this means that they have both male and female physical characteristics. Maybe there was a genetic mutation and they were born with indiscriminate parts as the sexual organs, or maybe they were born with both female and male sexual organs. Then there's gender. Gender is social construct as well. Think about your masculinity, femininity, or androgyny. Yes, you may identify as male, but you may not be that masculine. Maybe you don't want to get your hands dirty. Maybe you don't want to be seen as rough and tough. Maybe you're a female, but you're not that feminine. Maybe you don't like the color pink. Maybe you hate dresses. So when you think about the gender construct, think about it as what the expectation for how a particular group should act. A really good example of this was when I was a child. I would watch my mom and other ladies at my grandmother's church spread out their dresses and sit down. And I thought that was really, really pretty. So I wanted to imitate them. Now there is nothing biological in me that made me want to fan out my dress. It was purely me just imitating those around me. Another time, from when I was about 4 years old, I was outside with my dad. We were in the garden and he decided to spit on the ground. I thought, ew, that's pretty gross, but I could see how that could be highly effective. If you have something in your mouth, go ahead and spit. A few days later, I was with my mom, and I had something in my mouth, so I decided to spit on the ground. And my mother said, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. How can I get out of this? Dad did it. I saw him do it. And Mom said, "No, ladies don't spit." Well, biologically, yes, I can spit on the ground. There is nothing holding me back from doing that. But socially, it's inappropriate, and I shouldn't. So again, you can kind of see the differences between biological sex and the social construct of gender. Then there is sexual orientation, and this refers to our romantic and even sexual attractions. One way I really want to explain this is by using the genderbread person. I found this picture from itspronouncedmetrosexual.com, and I really like how they show how all these different ideas about gender, about sexual orientation, are really just continuums. They're spectrums. If you see here, towards the bottom of the picture here, it shows you sexual attraction, which relates to who you're sexually attracted to. If you're attracted to nobody, then you would be considered asexual. If you're considered to someone of the same sex, then you'd be gay or lesbian. If you're interested in those of the opposite sex, heterosexual. Both sexes, bisexual. Now, it's not that clear cut, because keep in mind that these are both spectrums, and at times there could be someone who is somewhat interested in the opposite sex, but also somewhat interested in the same sex, but not that sexually attracted to them. And they're wondering, well, what's wrong with me if I'm not sexually attracted to either? Or maybe they're asexual, but they're biromantic. So you see, all these different ideas of how we express ourselves, how we express our attraction to other people, they're really, really deep. And to just say that gender is a binary, it's an either or, that sexual attraction is an either or, it's to really misunderstand the deep richness of these different categories of how we express our humanity. Another cultural demographic we're going to talk about is age. Now, when I say age, I'm not referring to you are 21 versus you being 22. I'm talking about the generational ages that we have. Each generation has strong tendencies to react similarly to those of the same generation, but keep in mind that just because you're in the same generation as one person, you're not all going to act the same. The common generations that we have in America today are the GI generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers, Generation X, the millennials are also known as Generation Y, and then Generation Z. So based on the different situations that occurred during the time period when you grew up, it's going to have a huge effect on how you interpret meaning around you. For example, because the social landscape of America had changed so much, when it came time for Generation Xers to start growing up, they saw that both parents usually worked outside the home. Because of this, sometimes they would get home and they would have to take care of themselves in some ways. Because of that, they became independent, resilient, and adaptable. So it makes perfect sense why a strong work ethic would be instilled in Generation X today. Generation Xers are also known for having an entrepreneurial spirit, which makes sense given the fact that they've already learned how to be independent at such a young age. But generations aren't the only social demographic to think about as well. What about social class? Wealth can impact the quality of your life. Now, while the textbook does not talk about social class that much, I do want to mention how it affects us. Because we know that our access to quality basic needs such as clean food, clean water, shelter, clean air can be affected by social class. Having access to safety, going again up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, if you don't have to worry about those basic needs getting met because you have wealth, then you can start worrying more about the higher needs, the love and belonging, your self-esteem, even self-actualization. And that's going to have an impact on how you see yourself. Also think about physical and cognitive diversity. Now when it comes to our physical ability, there are so many different ways that we're different. We may look similarly in color, or with our sex, or even age as other people, but some of us have physiological talents that other people don't have, or even physiological impairments that other people don't have. I had one friend who said that he had to check his privilege in a way because he would get so upset whenever he was walking behind someone in a wheelchair. And he realized, no, I shouldn't get upset. I should understand what this person is going through. If you've ever had to look for all the ramps on campus or in some large building, you can see how just having that different mindset based on that physiological difference can shape how you see the world. Even think about cognitive abilities, IQ, learning preferences, your interests, your memory. That's going to have a shape on you, right? I know I have a close friend who has a learning disability, and she said that yes, while she's black, while she's a female, having her learning disability has been one of the strongest parts of her life to have to deal with, because at times while in school she was told negative things about not being able to make it or not be able to go on and get her degree. Right now, my friend recently graduated with her master's degree and is working as student affairs liaison. So she proved that no, it doesn't matter what your ability is, we are all capable. And then there's multiple intelligence theory. This is that all can learn through various methods, but we all have our different preferences. I know that for me, you can tell me something and I can learn it, but if you show me some pictures or you give me an activity where I can actually put my hands on it and do something kinesthetic, it's going to sink in deeper. Not only do we have physical and cognitive diversity, we also have ideological diversity. Now, ideologies are the set of ideas, beliefs, and ideals that form one's worldview and provide a basis for action. Think of it as your perspective of how the world should work. For example, your political beliefs are a part of your ideology. Now, a big part of how you form your ideology is going to be based on your family and society. I know that for me, my parents pushed education from the time before I could remember, honestly. When they realized that I had speech difficulties when I was growing up, they immediately got me hooked on phonics. They got me connected to a speech pathologist. They wanted me to learn well. I remember constantly being pushed to do the best that I could in every single grade, in every single skill, to do the best that I could academically. Not only did that ideology in my family push me, but it also pushed my sister. So years later, when my sister and I both graduate from college, we had no idea that the seed had already been planted. Today, I teach at a college, and my sister teaches high school. Interesting, huh? From the time that we were born, education was pushed into us as the way to succeed, and we both end up working in education. There's also religious diversity. Now, there are many formal religions: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. The list could go on and on for days, and I could be here. And even within those formal religions, there are different denominations that have their own unique set view. Now, there has been a rise of non-religious but spiritual individuals in the U.S. This has been a common theme among millennials. It'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out, if there will be a swing towards being spiritual but not so much religious, or if it will swing back to being more religious and not so much spiritual with Generation Z. So we've talked about so many different cultural demographics here in this video, and then next we're going to talk about some ways to be confident communicators in our intercultural diversity.